If you're serious about building living soil faster and cheaper, this episode will change how you compost. Make sure you subscribe to Evergreen Garden, drop a comment with your compost method, and share this with a gardener who's still struggling with slow, lifeless piles. Today we're cutting straight to one of the most powerful compost accelerators available to home gardeners and market growers alike, and that is alfalfa. Not compost in theory, not gardening hype, but practical, repeatable results you can apply this week. Why alfalfa quietly outperforms most compost accelerators. Alfalfa is not just animal feed, it is a nitrogen-rich, microbe-feeding, soil-activating plant material that contains trace minerals, amino acids, and natural growth stimulants like triacontanol. When added to compost, alfalfa doesn't just feed the pile, it wakes it up. Microbial activity increases rapidly, heat builds faster, and decomposition becomes more complete. This is why compost piles amended with alfalfa often finish weeks earlier than standard kitchen scrap and leaves piles. The key decision gardeners must make is whether to use alfalfa hay or alfalfa pellets, because while both work, they behave very differently. Understanding alfalfa hay in real composting conditions. Alfalfa hay is loose, fibrous, and full of long stems and leaves. In compost, this structure matters. Hay adds bulk and airflow, preventing compaction while delivering nitrogen at roughly 2.5 to 3% by weight. This makes it an excellent green material when balanced correctly. For a standard backyard compost pile, measuring roughly 1 cubic meter, adding 10 to 15 kilograms of chopped alfalfa hay, layered with dry leaves or straw, will create a strong heat response within 3 to 5 days. The hay should ideally be chopped or broken down by hand before adding, because long strands slow decomposition and can mat together if compacted. Hay works best in actively turned compost systems where oxygen is maintained. Where alfalfa hay can cause problems if misused. Hay introduces weed seed risk if it is not certified weed-free, and that matters if you use compost directly in vegetable beds. Hay also absorbs moisture unevenly, meaning piles can dry out internally while appearing wet on the surface. Gardeners who fail to water deeply often end up with partially composted hay cores. To prevent this, hay-based compost piles should be watered until moisture reaches the consistency of a wrung-out sponge throughout the pile, not just the top layer. Turning once every 7 to 10 days keeps breakdown even and prevents cold pockets. So let's talk about why alfalfa pellets behave differently and, honestly, often faster than other compost activators. Alfalfa pellets are basically compressed, finely ground alfalfa, and in most livestock-grade versions there are no binders at all. Once these pellets are exposed to moisture, they swell up and disintegrate really quickly, which creates immediate contact between microbes and nitrogen. This, in turn, makes pellets one of the fastest compost activators you can get your hands on. In a typical compost pile, if you add, say, 2 to 3 kilograms of alfalfa pellets per cubic meter and mix them evenly through your browns, you'll find the internal temperatures rising above 55 degrees Celsius within just 48 hours. That level of heat is actually enough to kill off many weed seeds and pathogens, provided you maintain it for several days. Now let's cover how pellet density changes compost ratios and timing. Because these pellets are quite dense, you really have to use them carefully. Adding too much can create excess nitrogen, which leads to that unpleasant ammonia smell and, well, nitrogen loss. The correct working ratio for pellets is roughly 1 part pellets to 10 parts carbon material by volume. So, for example, if you're adding 1 bucket of pellets, you should balance it out with 10 buckets of dry leaves, shredded cardboard, or straw. This ratio helps create a biologically efficient environment without burning off those valuable nutrients. Pellets are especially effective in cold climates or during cooler seasons, when compost piles tend to struggle to heat up. So let's talk about cost, availability, and practicality for gardeners. Hay is usually cheaper per kilogram and more accessible in rural areas, while pellets are cleaner, easier to store, and more consistent in urban settings. Hay is ideal for large compost operations, garden-scale farms, and gardeners producing multiple cubic meters of compost at a time. On the other hand, pellets really shine for small backyard piles, compost tumblers, and for gardeners who want fast results without handling bulky materials. Honestly, the decision is less about which is better and more about scale, labor, and control. Now, when it comes to actually using alfalfa in composting systems, there are a few approaches depending on your materials. If you are building a hot compost pile using hay, start with a 15 centimeter base of coarse browns, add a 10 centimeter layer of alfalfa hay, water thoroughly, then just repeat until the pile reaches at least 1 meter high. Turn the pile after 5 days, then again every week. Finished compost can be ready in 6 to 8 weeks. If you are using pellets, dissolve 1 kilogram of pellets in 10 liters of water overnight, then pour evenly over layered browns while building the pile. This slurry method distributes nitrogen evenly and prevents hot spots. There are times when alfalfa actually works better than manure or synthetic activators. Unlike manure, alfalfa introduces no pathogens when sourced properly and breaks down cleanly without odor when balanced. Unlike synthetic activators, it feeds soil biology rather than just accelerating decay. Gardeners using alfalfa-amended compost often report improved soil crumb structure, increased earthworm activity, and stronger plant growth in the following season. This is not coincidence. Alfalfa compost feeds bacteria, fungi, and higher soil organisms simultaneously. So, just a few final thoughts on choosing the right alfalfa strategy. If you want volume, structure, and affordability, hay is your ally. If you want speed, control, and compact efficiency, pellets are hard to beat. Many experienced gardeners, eventually use both. Hay for bulk composting and pellets for boosting slow piles or reactivating old compost. What matters most is understanding how each behaves and applying it deliberately. If this guide helped you compost smarter, subscribe to Evergreen Garden, leave a comment sharing whether you use hay or pellets, and pass this video to another gardener who's still waiting months for compost to finish. This channel is about real soil, real results, and gardening knowledge that actually works season after season.